Inflation data came out last week for March. It's not good news. However, many economists are calling for inflation to have peaked. Is that true or not? We're going to get into it. That and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Has inflation peaked? I hope so, guys. I hope so. I have my doubt, and I'm going to share with you why, okay? But before we get into that, last week inflation data came out for March. Year over year, inflation is at 8.5%, rising again from the prior reading and slightly surpassing expectations. I'm not going to show you here, but I had, prior to the inflation data actually coming out, I had a list of 15, 16 of the top banks and economists, and some were thinking 8.6, many were thinking 8.2, 8.3, came in at 8.5. It's just astounding. If you would have told me a year ago that we're going to see inflation readings at 8.5%, I would have said you're crazy. If you would have told me 10 years ago, I might have punched you in the nose. Actually, I'm not aggressive, but that is insane. 8.5% inflation. So has inflation peaked? Will that be the highest reading? I hope so. I have my doubts. Many economists, take a look here, are expecting it. And one of the reasons why is used car prices have actually come down a little bit. In this latest reading, used car prices came down a little bit. Used truck prices came down. That's good news. However, my goodness, I mean, vehicle prices, especially used cars, there's lots of places you can look where used cars are actually more expensive than new cars. And so, guys, to me, the used car prices coming down slightly, to me, I'm not going to get overexcited and say that's a peak to inflation. That's a sign for a peak to inflation. All right, so why do I doubt that inflation is peaking? And again, I hope it is. My first reason is housing prices, okay? Housing, if you look at the actual CPI data, this is the largest component of the CPI, 33%, and it's being wildly understated by taking a look at this tweet. Of course, I'm just reading it, but they're saying it's up only 5% year to year. That's insane. Rents are up 17%, home prices are up 19%. So there's no way that is factored in adequately to represent to average into an 8.5% inflation rate. It's understated. There's just no question about it. So because that's understated, I have my doubts that, well, inflation's just going to go down from here. No, we've got to start incorporating the actual real information for housing and shelter in the CPI data. But here's the other thing. You guys know, and we're going to talk about this more in these other couple points, but prices are based on supply and demand. And right now there's been more and more demand for houses, but the supply has remained very low. Inventories are very low. I'm not going to show you those details right now. Done other videos about that. Inventories are shockingly low number of houses on the market, okay? That's creating bidding wars and pushing prices higher. Well, the government's response was, we're going to raise interest rates. They've only done it once so far, but they're going to raise interest rates, and that will help calm things down. Well, the market and the mortgage rates have far outpaced, have basically run with that. We've seen interest rates, mortgage rates absolutely surge, okay? So now what's that going to do to home inventories? Are people that have a 3% mortgage rate going to be thrilled about listing their house just to buy a new one that will have a 5.5 or 5.25% interest rate? No. I think the pace at which mortgage rates have increased and surged is actually going to continue to create a problem for housing inventories, which will mean prices will stay stubbornly high. That is my guess, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think, I'm hopeful, but I don't think inflation's peaked here. Another reason why I think inflation might continue edging higher, China shut down. Who would have seen this coming, right? Who would have expected that China was already going to, all of a sudden going to have a surge of COVID cases, even though they had remained pretty calm while the rest of the world was surging cases last year in late 2020. So they've got lockdowns, and I mean, based on the data I'm seeing, I'm certainly no expert in this, but those lockdowns have been they've been, for a couple of weeks and no real sign of slowing down because China produces so much and exports so much. When there's a shutdown, that's going to create more of a shortage, supply and demand, and could make it more difficult to ship products and therefore people to consume products. We've got this labor shortage, supply shortage extending potentially because China's been in shutdown. And then the final reason why I fear inflation might not have peaked and might continue creeping higher is the food crisis. Have you heard of this? Obviously, it's impacted from the Russia and Ukraine crisis, but I'm hearing more and more people talk about a legitimate food crisis and food shortage happening. Really, since the war started, I've heard people concerned about this. Now, obviously, Russia, Ukraine, very important on the global scale for the commodities and the food that they produce, and that's going to have a global reach here. But when you've got that on top of already strained supply chains, to me, I think, again, if we've got demand still at a high level, right, and supply all of a sudden shrinks or temporarily shrinks, that's going to push prices higher. I think we, obviously, as you can see from these charts, it's possible that, we've already seen it. It's possible that it starts coming back down from here. I hope so. I just have my doubts. So has inflation peaked? I hope so. I have my doubts. At the beginning of this year, I shared with you, because of how quickly prices rose during 2021, it's hard to imagine we were going to have a repeat for calendar year 2022. It is alarming, though, that through the first quarter, we're seeing inflation continuing to push higher. At some point, I would expect, it's darkest before dawn, right? So at some point, I would expect prices to start stabilizing and inflation then to level out. I don't think we're there yet, because we still have this problem with houses. We've got China all of a sudden in lockdown again, and because of, or in large part due to the Russia-Ukraine war, now we've got a food shortage that's going to push prices up as well. So what should you be doing about it? Number one, I wouldn't expect that, okay, well, I'm going to blink and prices will be back to normal. I wouldn't expect that. Two, done lots of talks on this before, make sure you're managing the margin, guarding that margin in your financial life, because that margin is going to be used at the gas station or at the grocery store or whatever, right? So inflation erodes your margin in your budget. So you've got to beat that back and be diligent about managing your budget as well. And then three, don't let this allow you to lose focus on those long-term financial goals. Even though the stock market's been very volatile this year, the only sort of mainstream investment that over the long term has outpaced inflation the best is stocks. And so, yes, volatile right now, but still contribute towards your long-term goals. Stay on track with those, and doing so by investing in the stock market should be the right way to battle inflation, beat inflation over the long term. Work with your certified financial planner on all of that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.